Well, what is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the More Than Tattoos podcast. This is my first introduction.
Yeah.
I am your co-host, Tim. This is my co-host, Chris. And how was your week, sir?
It's good, man. Christmas, we had some family over, ate a bunch of good food. It's a little rough because the kiddo's sick, but I think that could be a lot worse, and that's the kind of mindset I'm trying to have because I could sit here and I could bitch about it and how tiring it was.
Be a Scrooge.
Being up all night, fucking throwing up. She just threw up 20 minutes ago.
Ugh. God damn
Taking
it.
her upstairs to bed, but that's all it is. That's all it's been. She hasn't had no fever and no major cough, anything like that. So it's been good, man. I could say I'm ready. I'm glad that they're over.
Yeah, right.
As much as I love them and I want to do them up for the kids, it's all right. Into the new year we go.
Right. I feel like that almost every year, I think. It's just like, I don't know. I love the holidays. I really love, it's big hitters at the end of the year. Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, fuck.
Back to back.
It's just a lot, And I've been playing more of the family part this last year, which is new for me.
Yeah.
I love it. I really do. I mean, I've always wanted that, but you don't know what you got until it's gone.
Yeah.
And freedom is a motherfucker, man. But it was good. I like the holidays a lot. Wish we got a white Christmas. It was raining.
Yeah,
but
I thought it was supposed to, man. I thought that's what the weather guy said.
Oh, good old weather, man.
But it was fucking. We were outside on Christmas with no jacket on, short sleeve.
Felt nice though.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. So, what do we have for him today?
Yeah, I think that this past week being as busy it is, we're gonna cruise. We don't have a whole lot of stuff planned, but I think that we got some good art talk. Some thoughts behind design and kind of some things in that area. Maybe how some of that translates into the social media, photo, video side of things. Maybe Tim can drop some camera settings on you and some things that he does to produce quality pictures for the gram, for whatever.
Right on. Well, first, just as it's a tattoo podcast, so. What if it's not already pretty well known? What kind of work do you do?
I focus a lot on black and gray realism. Here lately, I've been throwing some spurts of colors in there. I've been studying outside of everything else I got going on, trying to dip my toes into the color theory and actually learning a little more about that. I feel like I've always had a loose knowledge, but definition wise and actual colors, I've always just become, oh, that looks good, let's just roll with that, so I've been kind of wanting to play with that. Got the new Empire set. That's kind of what that's all based around. But I think that always analyzing my work and deciding, okay, how can I elevate that? That's really, as I've mentioned on the show, that's where I put a lot of my focus lately. And I think that introducing opaques and some color, that I've already done a bit, but really kind of bringing more of that into my repertoire.
Right.
Repertoire, I don't know what the fuck I ever say it, but bringing more color infusion and opaques in my work. But we'll see. I don't know. I haven't really found that style that I can really latch onto. Obviously, photorealism, black and gray, but I feel like there's so many badasses out there. I need something else to contribute to that to really kind of stand out some more,
Right. And I think with Instagram, it gets competitive, right? Because we've said this on the show too, but everyone's a badass.
Yeah.
There's so many fucking great tattooers now, and everyone's got their own little thing that pushes them just a little bit further on the art scale or fucking popularity on Instagram. And
Instagram's like a magnifying glass too, bro. Instagram will have you thinking every person in the world's a badass tattooer, when I know that's not the case.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And in real life, there's a lot of tattooers that I feel like aren't on my level. But Instagram makes me think everyone's on my level, and it really makes me want to step up and produce. But just trying to figure that niche or that style that I can fucking really run with. It's been challenging, you know.
And you've been doing black and gray for like what, like almost 6 years now?
Yeah, I think so. If it wasn't right before you came on, it was right after. But I think it was right before.
I think so too, because there was you had already kind of had some workup on your Instagram, because obviously that was all that I had to go off of at the time. You had some black and gray workup, and I know we had a conversation that you were wanting to go in that direction, and there was a couple of steps that we actually took with your business to try to
really create that branding.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, how long do you think you dabbled in playing with black and gray before you were like, all right, I think I'm just gonna fucking go for it? Maybe you may not have like an exact time to that, but like, do you remember what some of your thoughts were in there?
Yeah, I mean, I started before tattooing. Like, my favorite medium was graphite, just pencil. I mean, mechanical pencils and shit, you know. Right. So that's really where I started drawing. And then getting into the shop through my apprenticeship, post apprenticeship, we had some nice Starbright inks that I liked fucking tattooing, and I would actually hand draw my designs. So I was more into the neo-traditional, neo-believable, like not really illustrative, but in that realm of things. And really did color for like 5-6 years. You know, really heavy. But the tattoo that actually, the guy who was apprenticing me was like, okay, you're ready to be done, was a black and gray set of praying hands. And it's funny because there was 2 clients that day, and they both wanted praying hands. It was family. And he took one pair, and he took one, I took the other, and he did his tattoo in like fucking 20 minutes. He was like, I think there's a mindset with tattooers, him in specific, that was like, if I can't be that great, I'm gonna be fast. And like, that's what he fucking held on. He's like, I can knock down something. He's quick. And he pounded out in like 20 minutes, and like, my tattoo was like 2.5 hours later and got done. And, just looking at him side to side, I felt bad. Because they were like together, they got to see each other's tattoo, and I think one person walked away. Yeah, and it wasn't that great, I mean, looking back on it now, I'm like, like, God.
Right.
But compared to,
and that's an interesting experience, because obviously I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure that they were like trying to get matching tattoos, but, it's like kind of, in a way, it's like they're getting the same thing.
Yeah. And I think we specified that like it's 2 different people, so I don't care how close the design is. 2 different people do it, it's not going to be 100% matching. Unless you take zero liberty. I guess it's possible, but
like almost one of the artists makes the design, and like both people are just like,
I need to know step by step what the fuck are you doing, needle wise, ink wise. But even then, it's like one person's hand maybe a little heavier than the other, and you get thicker lines, or just so hard to make them perfect. Even if one person does both up, usually the second one's better.
Right. Right. Your first one's never the best.
Yeah, I always tell people like, oh, I just did one of these. I got my practice in for you. You know? Because that's usually my frame of mind is like each tattoo is going to be better than the last one. So by default, if I do 2 lion heads, the second one's just gonna be
better by default.
Yeah,
right.
But yeah, that was so circling back, I started black and gray, and I did black and gray throughout the whole process. I was the guy that was like the jack of all trades, versatile as fuck. Like,
gotcha.
Coming into Al9, I could tattoo whatever you wanted. Except for maybe color portraits, but I never really tried. I never dove down that rabbit hole, because it's obviously they're a lot of work,
right?
And I just never really wanted to take that on all the way. But I do confidently, I feel confidently that I can say that I could fucking tattoo just about whatever you wanted,
So what got you to start to break away from that? Because I mean, I meet people all the time that are like, they carry that same mindset, which is like, I mean, that's kind of dope. It's kind of like a musician. They're like, oh, I play metal, but I can also like get down on some country or fucking anything. I'm not like that. Like I can't play just about any kind of music, and I feel like I'm similar in an artistic way. But what was it for you that was like, man, I feel like I just gotta like narrow it in. Like I gotta tighten it up.
Well, working with a bunch of badasses, hip being one of them. He had a certain style that he liked to try to do. Zach, he had kind of a vibe. Matt, he had a style. And then looking on Instagram, people have styles. So if I'm chasing badasses, that kind of made me want to hone in on one thing. Like if I'm posting a Polynesian piece and then I'm posting a neo-traditional and then I'm posting a realistic, I feel like that's not as cool as just like having a thing,
Right.
And I remember that conversation I was having with Matt, and I think that coming on Tile 9, I had a little bit of a lack mindset, one with clientele and pricing, but it was kind of the same thing with doing black and gray color. It's like being the versatile guy kind of trickles down from wanting to tattoo everyone who wants a Chris Powell tattoo. So no matter what you want, I'm going to try to cater. Same way with styles. Like I'm going to try to be across the board so I can tattoo more people. Now over time, I've learned that I don't need to tattoo everyone. I can tattoo a specific amount of people and kind of narrow that in. But yeah, he was like, man, fuck, dude, there's so many people that like just black and gray. Like you'd be fine. If that's what you want to do, fucking run with it.
Right.
And that's where I kind of committed to doing just black and gray. Won't lie though, a lot of it was just because I didn't want to fucking pour 60 colors, because I didn't know color theory. I couldn't use 11, or 12.
That's fair. Because there's like still a level of, that's not to say that the people that like doing black and gray are just strictly lazy. But I think there's a little bit of a trade-off because if you're not so worried about a shit ton of colors, you could spend that time other places, right? Like execution and like how do I do these certain areas or just trying to level up in certain ways. Or I think one big thing in black and gray is contrast. I mean, contrast is a big thing in art altogether. It's one of the components of artwork. But I feel like with black and gray, you get to express that in a maybe not better, but in just a different way that can call you to, can kind of pull you into focusing on contrast more than with color work. Because I feel like with color, I can't even talk on the first thing about it. It's like I feel like there's just so many things that you have to think about all the time.
Yeah.
And I know there's tons of people that love doing color, but man, they got to be stressed out. Like stressed out.
Just a lot of prep, a lot of thought, and which is all good things, all good things. And I think that tattoo clients love color. If you can do fucking baller ass world renowned color, like your plate will be full forever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And not to say that that's not the case with black and gray. I just think there's a wow factor to it that you really have to try really hard to get with black and gray.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to saturate the shit out of it
Lots
and use
of black.
whites, lots of black, get that contrast like you mentioned. And it has to heal saturated. I think that I know that light black and gray is a thing. But the saturation levels are still there. The blends and the smoothness of it's still there. But so many times I'll see black and gray where there's just too much skin tone, or they did more pressure shading and it just got really light once it healed. But if you don't get that black, that rich black to it, it just something about it just is dull. You know?
And most of the time you're not like up on a tattoo like 2 feet away from it as you're like staring at it. You're usually seeing it from about like 30 feet away or something, like standing at fucking Walmart or just like across the room from somebody.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to make sure that from a distance it still has the contrast to see, what the fucking tattoo is. And I think that color, in a different way, maybe color tattoos can come off more legible from a distance because you have more Like,
well, especially if you know what you're doing with the colors, because your eye will naturally read it better.
exactly, because there's like more equation to it.
Yeah.
For like its readability, right? Because the human eye will like see like a couple of different colors and certain shapes and just like automatically know. But if it's all black and skin tones, from a distance it can become a lot harder to read, like almost muddled or like muddy, and like lots of mediums and stuff like that, or like you said, a lot of open skin tone.
Yeah.
So
I had a lot of fucking muddy tattoos, just over the years, just trying to, for one, leaving enough skin tone for highlights and not having to use a shit ton of white because I went too dark. That was tough for a long time, man. Just using too many midtones, and it just, you squint your eyes and it's just all together.
right.
Um, it's tough to stay disciplined enough to leave enough skin tone, or balance it out and like pre-editing on Procreate or something to where like you can use whites but don't have to use a shit ton of them.
Right.
I love the way whites look with black and gray when they're fresh, but it always makes me a little nervous as they're healing or post heal and how they're going to look. And
like how white is it really going to be?
Yeah, and a lot of it matters with the person's skin tone and how well they take care of it, and sun exposure, stuff like that. But I don't know, it's tough. It's something that even after all these years, it's hard for me to really like know exactly how I want to execute it. And maybe it changes each time with the tone of someone's skin, but it's really just all an experiment still.
Right. I mean, I feel like you're just always experimenting with work until until you decide that you're not any longer. You're like, I'm just going to keep doing this one thing. And I feel like and maybe this is not true, so feel free to anyone to correct me with this, but I feel like that's a little bit of a trap you could fall into with black and gray, is like trying to get every little fucking measurement of like what is that's of a value, right? I always fuck up those words. But like trying to hit every little fucking stop.
Well, I think sometimes if you go from like black to light, if you're able to blend that black out smooth enough to where it transitions good, but if you don't have a smooth blend when it heals, they really separate more.
It look choppy, kind of.
It could be,
or blocky.
I guess the best example and like where I notice it the most is with red and black. Like red, when it heals, if you don't have that fucking smooth gradient of black into it, like they just separate really hard. And I think it's the same way with black and gray. So there has to be that bridge somehow,
right?
Even if it's very minimal. But sometimes trying to do that bridge, you take it out too far, real easy. But there has to be that, you got to have that gradient somehow. And I just don't like to go from black to light without there being like some kind of medium, hint of dark, hint of medium into light. I think that it makes for better overall healing, the smoothness of it, I guess.
And do you feel like over the last, say like it's been like 6 years, do you feel like you've just been steady in that space of like trying to figure that stuff out better with black and gray? Or have you feel like you spent like a couple years doing that and then tried to focus on other things? Like, I guess maybe what has your artistic journey been this last 6 years? If you can kind of contemplate what that's looked like. Because I know you've tackled a lot of things, opening a shop, that's going to take time away or pull your intentions away from other things. Or
I don't think that like, I don't think my art and being like in a niche or like having a certain style has ever been number one priority. Obviously, doing the best tattoos I can is fucking up there, but I've focused on a lot of other aspects of my business, which I think has really helped me. And I think that's why I'm competing with some of the biggest in the world, as far as like clients, financially. I think the quality competes with any of them, but the design aspect of it, I'm really trying to focus on now. Over the years, I spent a lot of time pouring into you, pouring into clients, pouring into the shop, building relationships. There's been a lot of areas I've focused a lot on, and my family being one of them. I always tried to separate as best I can. So I feel like everywhere else except for the composition of things has been a huge priority in like art background, detail. Like obviously I feel like at one point in time with graphic design I learned a lot of technical things, but the technical side of it's never been huge for me. I could care less what the fucking words mean, you know? Like how does it look? How does it feel? That's kind of always been my thing. So I'm moving into a season where it's like I want to learn color theory. I want to really play with opaques. I want to uh, focus more on the technical side of things and making sure I'm getting the best quality images and really putting together designs that's shit I haven't done before, you know, and really, you know, solidifies that best of Ohio. You know, like there's a fucking handful of badasses, you know, right here in the Midwest, and I want to not just be best of Springfield, you know,
Right.
Friendly, obviously, like
There's always got to be good
you know,
competition.
and I'm fucking hoping they're feeling the same way about
Right.
me, you know. But that's where I'm moving into is just the fucking design aspect of things. I want to be able to speak to, because I listen to some of these podcasts, bro, and the information these guys are spewing, I'm like, how the fuck am I even supposed to compete with that shit? You know, like
Right.
I've been listening to, I think it's the Tattoo Show. It's from overseas. Yeah, that Tattoo Show, and the dude is like, I thought Matt was good on camera, but this dude is like flawless speaker and just knowledge out the asshole. And I'm just like, how the like, why would anyone ever listen to me? You know?
Right.
So that's where I'm really going to put a lot of time in this coming up year. So by the end of 2024, I can feel comfortable being in a conversation of competing with world class artists. You know,
Right.
more painting, for sure, more painting. But yeah,
Well, and we know that you know, what's the saying? It's not practice makes perfect. It's practice makes progress.
yeah,
So I do think that living into, or even just speaking out loud, like this is the season I'm going into. I want to do these things. I think even just saying that is gonna like open you up to doing more and like doing better on it or being more intentional. Like things are actually sticking to you better. And of course, all of those things just give you more confidence in the thing
yeah,
altogether, right?
yeah,
Which is just good momentum, you know? It's like, it's kind of a side tangent, but it's why I've started to try to like literally speak into things more, you know? Because I used to be such a negative person. And when you're like, I think one of our biggest examples, the one that we joke about all the time, is bad with names. You know, I'm bad with names. I'm bad with names. You know, well, if you keep saying that, you're just gonna be bad at names. You don't even have a chance at like getting better with it. And then you could go fucking 20 years still saying that same exact shit.
yeah.
Can't remember a single fucking name, but you just like act like you want to be because you hate every single time you get in that situation where you're like, I fucking can't remember your name.
Now you're dipping and dodging, bro, man,
Bro, man, dude,
hey.
what's up, my
Yeah.
guy? Yeah, you're just like literally going through like the women's aisle at Walmart, to like avoid this person you see. You're like, oh fuck, I can't remember his
Why are you
name.
looking at tampons?
That person you forgot his name's coming up to you to ask you
Yeah.
that. Like, bro, what are you doing over here?
It's like,
The lady sent me out.
yeah.
I do my due diligence.
I'm not hiding from you, I promise. Bro, that used to be me for sure. I mean, first few years of tattooing, I mean, probably, I say first few years, but really 5 or 6 years, like outside the tattoo shop, I was not confident at all, you know, and I just would try to dodge everyone. You know, it's like if I didn't make contact with them or I looked away before they looked at me, cool. I ain't even gotta
Right.
I don't gotta say shit, you know. But that didn't serve nobody, and it just kind of fed into my poor self image, you know. But that was me and Katie for sure.
Yeah, I can admit that I'm still kind of like that, but the older I get and the more like accepting I become of myself, and this isn't even coming from like a negative place, but dude, I just don't like talking to people in public.
Yeah.
I don't like if I'm at a, like I saw my buddy Alex a couple times when he was out doing like Christmas shit or whatever. And even then, like he's one of my best friends. I didn't want to stop him and talk to him because the stores are fucking crazy busy right now. And whenever I go out in public, I always have like a narrative in my head. I'm like, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and it's all gonna happen in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I feel like I started out like with the poor self-image thing, but now it's like, dude, I've got shit to do. Like I will avoid people just because I want to be able to accomplish my tasks on time in the timely manner that I'd set for myself.
But it still comes back to, if you had the full confidence, you could start it and end it within 30 seconds and be good, you know?
You're exactly right. And I feel like I get that weird thing in my head where we talked about this with Hip, where it's like you're overthinking it. You're like, well, I'm not going to just like fucking sell this short. I don't want to do it for 30 seconds because if I'm going to do it, I'd rather just like really be all in with that person so that when I have this time with them, they walk away and they're like, damn, Tim, like he did good for me. You know, he like really cared and stuff like that. So I definitely avoid like people wanting to like not fuck up the interaction by selling it short. Cause then I feel like people are going to walk away and be like, damn, he was just trying super hard to get out of that the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is usually how it ends up being. And then I walk away from him like, damn, you're a fuck. Like you're such a shithead. You could have just like sat there, but trying to get I got milk in the cart, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, dude, it was fucking awesome seeing you. I got milk in the car. I do got to roll, but maybe we'll talk again soon, man.
I'm gonna go out to Kroger and like try to find somebody I know and like just make a 30-second conversation out of it.
It's that planting that seed, even if you do got to run. You know, if you left that without even saying what's up, then it's like, well, fuck, Tim. I'd seen Tim, but he didn't even say nothing to me. You know?
Right. And that leaves like,
did he see me? Did he not see me? Why would he not say hi?
And I'm willing to bet that if I did, just worst case scenario, start that and then fumbled off of that 30 seconds without even making it clean, probably is leaving a better impression than not at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's that seed planted. You never know what's going to come of that. You know. You never know what that interaction could lead to, but it's something you really got to put effort into. For me, at least, you know, it sounds like you do too. But
very much so, and I think it's very ironic that we're talking about this mid-holiday season, or I guess we're like tail end of holiday season because now is like the peak time for it. Yesterday was Christmas, right? Yeah, it was yesterday. Dude, I saw more fucking relatives or just people I knew in one day than I think I have the whole fucking year.
Yeah.
And it's so exhausting because I feel like I do that same thing. Like I do the Walmart thing, like while I'm trying, like on a holiday, like I'm trying to spend time with you. That's what my intention is. But like, I just got to get some alone time, y'all.
Yeah. That's us introverts need quiet, peaceful time with no one around to recharge.
Right. Like I need like, and it's so funny because I'm one of the. Do you have conversations with yourself? Do you like talk in your head? Like, does your consciousness or your conscience rather, like, does it speak to you?
Yeah.
See, same, because like, and it's not like it's like going all the time, but that's why I need quiet time. Yeah. Because when I'm like talking to someone else, I can't talk with my conscience.
Yeah.
It like shuts it off. So like it's even different for me than thinking about what I'm going to say before I say it. Those are like two different things, like having a conversation with my conscience and thinking about what I'm saying as I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
sure,
it might be like a weird thing, but
I feel like I'm similar, you know. I talk to myself all the time in my head, but then also I'm very visual too. Like, dude, I can see pictures in my head for sure. You know, like what things look like, how shit's gonna look there. But
I've noticed that about you. You are a very visual person. I'm very text based.
No,
I feel like it's just all fucking words going across my head.
I feel like you know, like with this room piecing it together, I feel like it was this upstairs. I mean, upstairs I want to take control, but I have to let Katie create the visual she likes, but she's not a very visual person, so she has to buy shit to
Try it
see
out.
it.
Yeah, I'm very similar. It gets me in a lot of situations I'd rather not be in otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, this whole ass fucking bookshelf is just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I've been practicing just because I've had to this season with talking to people. Dude, I don't care where it's at anymore. I can't go anywhere in Springfield without people knowing who I am. So like we go to Walmart or Myers, I swear I'm talking to at least 6 or 7 people like every trip, man. I can't get in and out of anywhere
Dude.
without talking to somebody.
And that's so kind, but that like makes me think. And by the way, I'm not gonna like fluff your head up here because you ain't no Taylor Swift.
Right. No, we're talking
But
about little old Springfield here.
right, but that just makes me think of like, I think it was this last year Taylor Swift tried to go to like a family wedding or something. It was like her cousin, like just fucking my cousin is getting married, and they had this dinner or whatever, and I guess like thousands of people like flooded the restaurant they were at, or maybe it was like a hotel with like a restaurant in it type deal, but like flooded the streets, fucking straight surrounded that motherfucker, like you
Swifties.
right, literally the Swifties, and it's like she like had to go into hiding
Yeah.
so that like she could just live a normal life. And I couldn't even fucking imagine.
Sounds rough for real.
Which, I mean, even to dial it back into like what you're experiencing, that's so like in my head while I have time to think about it, I'm like, that's such a blessing. That's so cool. Like you go out and someone's like, hey, what's up, Chris? Like I know you. Maybe I don't know you, but fucking I see you. So like, what's up, man? It's cool to talk to you.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, that's such a blessing. But on the other end of it, I'm like again, it's like I have so many things. I put the way that my head works is like if I have a task that I'm wanting to accomplish, I prioritize that before anything. Like if I don't get this thing done, I'm going to be a mess. Like I'm gonna get an attitude. I'm gonna be grumpy. So I'm like the other side of me is like I would fucking hate it. Like I love so much that I can go in somewhere. It also doesn't help that I usually look like a fucking. I've been told I look like the Unabomber when I'm going in places because it's like head to toe, like you can barely even see my face, like with my hair all in my face and shit like that. So I don't know. I kind of like being able to go in places and just like get right out and like no conversation. But you know, when you're being like that, then the world has no idea that you exist.
Yeah.
You just like don't leave any impact to anyone. You make no changes outside of like maybe for what you've got going on, but it can be a lonely fucking world when you keep living that way.
Yeah, the other night we pulled up to Walmart. We pulled up. I backed in, and as I was backing in, there was someone walking to their car next to me, and he like looked in my truck and like realized who I was, and he like walked up to my window, and I had to like roll down the window and talk to him for like 3 or 4 minutes, you know. And me and Katie, we were smoking, so like smoke was just rolling out, and he's like, "Where you at? How do I book?" All these questions, and I'm like, "Oh, you know, this is awesome, man, but I'm just trying to run in here real quick, you know." But it's she's like, oh, "Man, we can't go anywhere," you know. But it reminds me of my grandpa. Growing up, my grandpa was he didn't know a stranger. You know, we'd go to church, we'd be leaving, and me and my sister and grandma would be standing there at the steps for like 20 minutes because he's just like talking to people, you know. But yeah, someone I haven't really talked about on the podcast before is my grandfather. It's the man my great grandfather. It's the man I grew up with. You know, worked 3 jobs, so grandma didn't have to work. She got to groom dogs and spend her money. However, yeah, I've been wanting to get their portraits for a long time, but my grandpa passed away in like 2009, so that was a couple years before I started my apprenticeship. Basically, my freshman year of high school. My grandma, she just passed away like 2 years ago, but they were married for like fucking 55 years. Yeah, buddy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, a couple good role models to have growing up, though. You know, parents were divorced when I was like 2, so I was like seeing my dad every other weekend. And when we were young, he was like, my mom's like calling the cops on him. And one memory I specifically remember is he like took his vehicle, parked up at Blockbuster, because he didn't have a license. My dad didn't have a license for like 18 years. But he parked up at Blockbuster, walked down, picked me and my sister up, said he wasn't driving, all this shit. So we walked and went and got back in his truck. By the time we got to his house, there was like 3 police out there waiting on him.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, got arrested and shit right there. I don't even know how I got there, but there was valuable lessons in that, but yeah, didn't really stay with my mom either. I was the grandparents' child, It was awesome though. We had kids in the neighborhood, played a lot of street football and baseball and shit, and it was awesome. Yeah, I loved growing up with them.
Is that neighborhood over on like Belmont and shit?
Yeah, by the big water tower.
Yeah.
Pissed though, because they redid the street the past couple years, so it's like we would get our skateboards, go to the top. It was a big ass hill, and but it was like full of holes and like rough. And now you go down it, it's like pristine,
just
like,
some butter. Like what? Where was this fucking 20 years ago, man?
Right.
Do you feel like this is random and like, or maybe I can tie this in with everything that you maybe had experienced in growing up? And I know that you said like the art side of things has never been like a major priority, but do you feel like there's anything from what you experienced in your childhood that built the narrative to doing artwork now, or like doing the kind of artwork you do now?
Yeah, man, there was some local graffiti artists. That was really it. We'd like I said, my dad didn't have a license, so we biked it everywhere. We would ride bikes all over the bike paths. We'd go fishing. We'd load our bikes down with fishing poles and a kid trailer on the back and ride. So we rode everywhere. But on the bike trail, you're going under a lot of bridges. You're just going around town, and there's graffiti everywhere. And I specifically remember playing on Florence one time growing up, and I found a piece of folded up paper, and it was an AWOL drawing. And I opened it up, and I that was like the only thing I had in my hand. Like there wasn't really, I didn't have a phone, so I wasn't like Google imaging graffiti and like learn how to draw that stuff. I was duplicating what I could see or what I would have access to. And I remember finding that drawing, and now it's like one of my good buddies. All these years later,
right,
was able to get connected. I tattooed him, and then I had a buddy named Seth Fern, and his brother did graffiti. So like we were always trying to draw his shit, and duplicate that stuff. There was even a little stint of like trying to spray paint.
Oh yeah?
No, it wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. I think I was like fucking I had to have been like 12, bro. Like 11, 12, 13 at the oldest, trying to graffiti.
Straight fucking deviant.
So like I don't even think my hands were big enough to really like use the spray paint can good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I was just out there fucking up other people's artwork.
Way to go.
But that was really, I think that was the only thing in my childhood that really made me want to do art. Tattoos weren't on the radar by any means. I don't even think I thought about getting my first tattoo until after my grandfather passed. So I was like 15 or 16. But even then, it wasn't like, I'm going to be a tattooer.
Right. What about in like, is there anything from, I guess, seeing that graffiti, was it just art as a whole? Or do you feel like is there anything about your childhood or like, I guess maybe your life as a whole now that when you're creating designs or like doing this particular black and gray style, is there any narrative to that? Or is it just like totally right now, like this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, I'm just trying to get better? Kind of a weird question, but
yeah, and I'm trying to understand exactly what you mean.
I guess it would be like is
there any artwork, the artwork that I'm doing now, is there any strong ties to my childhood through that? Like why I want to produce a certain style?
Right. Kind of like if you had a tattooer that primarily tattooed like forest-esque animals, and their reason for that is like, well, my fucking granddad and I just like was always in woods. So that's like what I fucking like. So like,
No, I mean, I think really the only thing I was really into is fishing, and I don't think fish tattoos are very cool. You know,
dogging on every fish tattoo right
well,
now.
I specifically think of catfish, and they're just like fucking brown.
Right, just some ugly fucks.
They are.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they make for great tattoos. I think some of the imagery that I've been most obviously skulls are dope, but just stylized skulls and like women portraits or like guy portraits, but just stylized somehow themed. Um, I've always been attracted to. I've done a lot of animals. I feel like I'm kind of moving away. You go through a period of time where you can only tattoo so many animals. You know what I'm saying? And then there's limited resources for good photos. At least, maybe not. Maybe you just have to look harder for them. You know, through websites and different platforms. But I've always liked antique shit too. I think I want to start incorporating more of like that stuff into the themes. You know. The skulls usually give me the most to play with. I feel like I'm the most confident, like a theme skull. But I can hear Hip when he's looking at him. I can just hear him saying, like, "Damn, didn't you already tattoo that skull?"
Right. And I was gonna say it's funny. Like I don't even tattoo, but being 6 years into like scrolling on Instagram through tattoos, I'd say over the last 2 years I've started to finally be like, all right, that's like the fourth fucking time I've seen that get used.
Yeah.
Or I think one something that has been funny to see happen this last year is I think reference 87 is starting to take off a lot, which they have fucking awesome imagery,
Great imagery.
but I'll scroll one day and it's like I can almost tell that like there was a new drop or something, or like there's new references like I posted or something, because like even Taya, we saw it happen with her. She like tattooed this like reference. It was like a skull with like a hand on the top, and then like 2 weeks later I saw fucking like 4 more tattoos using that same reference. Of course they're all modified a little bit to fit what they're doing, but yeah, there's only so many fucking images that you can do before you start going back to like, I'm curious as to when people are gonna, I guess maybe not, because we have fucking Midjourney now and like all this AI shit, but it's like at some point we're just gonna need to really start taking more photos, like mass photos, or people are gonna go start trying to like draw the shit again, or like freehand something on and be like, I know what I want to do here. I'm just gonna fucking draw on some basic shapes and just go for it.
That's the hardest part of me trying to find my own niche, is like there's so much shit that's already just being done already as we speak. Someone's already a fucking badass at this like next level, like that Michael Perry dude who just like does the 3D models of heads and the gold,
Right?
like that shit's fucking crazy, you know. Maybe learning different platforms outside of Procreate would also help with that. You know, I was listening to a podcast with Russ Abbott and just the technical programs that he uses, and really using those to my advantage to kind of help create something more, you know. Also inspired by some of Guy Atchison's stuff where he's like sculpting and big actual real canvases, like he's molding shapes and using I think the biggest thing with him is just light source, light form, like how the light hits things. But like actually hands-on sculpting things is crazy, you know. But I don't know how I would apply that to some of the realism stuff that I'm trying to do.
Right.
But I don't know. You know, I want to do. I like doing a lot of birds, a lot of nature stuff. Like we just got this new piece of artwork for down here in the room, and it's just like a nature scene. Like that shit's fucking captivating to me. I don't know how much I would love to tattoo that image, but just the scenery itself, I feel like it creates a cool feeling.
The mood, and that's where I was gonna go with it, because it's interesting. And not to say that everyone gets like an emotional narrative for their art from just childhood experiences, but I think that's a big one. but in the way that you don't know like technical terms and stuff like that, I wouldn't call you a technical person. So it's almost like throughout this like kind of pseudo interview, it's like trying to, is he more of an emotional person, like with his like a feeling based thing, or is he like more technical based, or
nah, fuck the details, like fuck not actually tattooing the details, like I'll try to capture everything in that area, but like the details of how everything works and why this means this, and if I do this it means that. I just love the going off feeling and just like what feels right, and trying to create that vision in my head of things I can change or may improve to make the feeling better. Because I feel like creating and procreate 9 times out of 10, the tattoo looks better because I'm able to connect the dots better.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're using multiple images, and do I really want to take extra 2 hours to like really dial this in 100% when I can just do it tattooing? Right. But I definitely want to improve on that area for sure.
Right. And I think that brings up, kind of brings us to an interesting thing that I wanted to talk about on the podcast was in tattoos, obviously, like you've said a couple times on this podcast, you're a realism artist. But when I hear realism, obviously a lot of my thoughts go to like photos, like a photograph, and like tattooing that. But you're also coming up with like a design that like fits someone's arm well, and a lot of times that comes with like double exposing some subject matters, and even playing with like colors in interesting ways to build contrast, or kind of like make the eye see something differently or section things off. So I think in photography, or maybe like different forms or different mediums of art, that would almost come off as surrealism in some ways, versus like it's still being called realism in tattoos, even though there's so much design going into it. And I don't know, you kind of see what I'm getting at, because even something like taking a skull and then putting like a rose with it and like kind of double exposing it in an interesting way, that skull's not as large as a rose, or I guess the other way around, that rose is as large as that skull, but now that I'm seeing it on someone's arm, the tattooer like blew up that rose to like fit this arm well, and they put a bunch of like flow lines or like smoke and shit. So when I see that, versus like in my head when I'm thinking of what photorealism is, it's just a photo in a realistic setting, that would tell me it's surrealism, because there's like, you're playing with like size and like distorting what reality is. And clearly a lot of the things that you see people have tattooed on them, there's not an actual image of that, right? You're taking images and combining it into like an art piece or a design. So
yeah, I just googled surrealism, the definition: a 20th century avant-garde AVANT-GARDE movement in art literature, which sought to release the creative potential of the unconscious mind, for example, by the irrational juxtaposition of images.
Which is kind of
that last
what it
sentence
is.
Kind of makes me think of what you just said. Yeah, taking multiple images and creating something with that.
Expressing the mind, and like, because that's literally what tattooers are doing. They're like, I've got this vision on my head. It would be dope if this skull was like double exposed with this fucking rose, but I've got to make it work. Like, so I've got to make the rose bigger. It's got to like be turned and like fit up into like, you just see what I'm saying? You're doing so many things to like make this fit the vision that's in your head, but it's in your head, Yeah. So again, I think that's so interesting why it still gets called realism versus surrealism. Well, but I know there are artists like Little Andy that are trying to like go towards that, and they're using that term like surrealism. Like, I do surrealism artwork, and when you look at it, you're like, that's definitely surrealism.
Sense, yeah, and that's a great example of me never really even caring. It's like the genre of music. Like, does
it sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've always called myself photorealistic realism artist, because I'm using photos, but taking those photos and maybe I should start saying more surreal, because very seldom do I do just a portrait or like
Right.
just a straight image. It's always mixed with things and try to have it stylized and um even if I do and it's like the portrait I just did this past week with um
Nicole.
Nicole's grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Uh that was stylized, mixed with a warrior helmet. Did you see the photo of her showing that to her grandma?
I didn't.
Yeah, she did a pretty cool actually like little video. Then it would be we probably should post it. But some stages throughout the day. It was like 6 or 7 different stages of progress, and then she took her bandage off, cleaned it all up, and her family was all there. But her grandma was sitting in a chair, and she went up and looked at that, and she was like, I think she said, I looked like a bad bitch or something like
No
that.
way.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome, dude.
And it was cool. Her leg looks so swollen in the video.
Oh man.
But I was like, damn, that was rad, But it's a good example of surrealism versus a photorealism because I used several different images.
And see, and that's another line for me. Like, I kind of hate that I'm like a genre Nazi like that a little bit. Because it's like you said, it's not important, but it's just like for me, like interesting, I guess. But I could almost see that as being realism, right? Despite like using the multiple.
Well, I think realism is an umbrella term, and then there's like subcategories.
You're right, because you could take surrealism. It could be like It could be like a neo-believable surrealism. So, and you're right, but I could also just imagine that a woman did wear armor like that, like in real life, and you could actually just photograph her that way. Or another example,
I guess if it was just done well enough to where it just looked photorealistic.
which I mean, like,
I get maybe even surrealism is a slight cop out from, not in a bad way. I'm not saying that and like you're not doing good enough. No.
Right? No, I see what you mean.
Not fully photorealistic because there's a play on it, or it's stylized a little bit. Because when I think photorealism, like that's the picture,
right?
So and I don't think I pulled off that helmet good enough to where it was just like, damn, that looks like
a photo
directly on her head. Like, no, I could tell that it was clearly 2 different images put together. I obviously do my best, but even with the background or like just how I put things in there, it didn't look like a photorealistic setting. Because when I think photorealistic, I'm thinking like shit's blurred, out of focus, in focus,
right?
Like sharp where but there's a lot of aspects to it that I feel like really creates a photo. And that's fucking hard.
It is super hard, especially when you're using multiple images to build this design or whatever. I think another example of that is like you see the people that do portraits like in a locket or like in a frame or something. Even though it could be like you take the locket separate than the photo and you put that photo inside the locket. If the execution's there, like what you're saying, you've got like the softer parts where it's like less focal, and then the sharper points where that's clearly where the focus is and stuff like that. I feel like that would just be deemed photorealism, right? Even though you're like making this locket, pretty much it's got this photo in it because it never existed beforehand. But I like wouldn't see that and think surrealism. But I think that you have such an interesting point with that I feel like photorealism should almost just be this definitive thing.
Well, it almost makes me think like a few small minor details could change that to where if it was teetering, now it's not. It's like, what kind of background do you do? Does it look like it's literally sitting on a table and like you have the drop shadow and you have like, does it look like you took a picture of this locket sitting
like fucking
on
wood grain on the back and it's like fading off or and like, stuff?
Is it hanging from something? But like, are the beads or the chain? Is it like perfect? Right. Does it look like it's how it would be in real life versus okay, instead of doing that drop shadow, I'm just going to put a little shade all around it, and now it looks like it's kind of floating. I feel like that takes away from the realism a little bit. So even just small details like that could make it teeter one way or the other. But do I think you could take a locket, put an image in it of a photo, and make it look like it was photographed all in one, but it was multiple images and still be photorealism? Yeah, I think so. But just those small minor details, I think, could really change it.
That's interesting.
Or I wonder what the definition of hyperrealism is.
And that's another fun one.
And I think it is just like enhancing, or like giving more highlights, or giving more texture, or just like amplifying the noise, kind of. Maybe noise isn't the right technical term. I'm sure that it's not, but just making things, keeping them realistic, but just exaggerating, maybe.
Right, you're like introducing more pixelation to it. Kind of a big one for me that I always think of, I guess, like in like canvas art, I always think of the woman that's got like the honey running down her face, or maybe it's like motor oil. I hope it's not motor oil. But I always think of that one. And then in tattoos, I always think of like the Kobe tattoos.
Hyperrealism is a genre of painting and sculpture resembling a high-resolution photograph. So that's kind of along the lines of what we're saying. It just amplifies all the detail, because resolution is
the amount of pixels
like
that are actually
DPI almost, like they're almost the same thing.
Very, very pretty. I mean, yeah, pretty much the same thing.
Hyperrealism is considered an advancement of photorealism by methods used. Oh shit! I clicked a. Yeah, so essentially, what we were saying.
Because you're extracting almost like every little bit of detail out of it. Because like when I'm looking, like right now, when I'm looking at you, for example, like the human eye doesn't see like someone's every last little fucking pore. They don't see like every last little highlight on every little like sweat bead coming off them or whatever. But when they go to do that artwork and they're aiming to make a hyper realistic image, they're probably going and like pulling out every last little bit of detail you get into that thing, because that's what they're always doing. I feel like those guys use the most white than any fucking artist, because it's almost like the whole tattoo's just got white in it at the very end.
And I think the white just adds a level of like sharpness.
And it does technically, because when I'm working in Lightroom and I turn the sharpness up on an image, it brings more whites. But I think that might have a lot to do with, like, obviously, I think sharpness is created through contrast, and it also comes through, like, how sharp the lines are being made. So a lot of times when I'm taking an image, it's usually darker than it is brighter. So the way that the image becomes sharper is bringing more white into it, or, like, more highlights into it, which overall just makes the image brighter. By default. Of course, it's not like taking the exposure and cranking it up, or like the shadows, so all the dark parts are now becoming light, but every last little nick or like line on someone's face, if it's a photo of someone's face or something, like all the white gets pulled out of it, like pulled forward rather.
Makes sense.
It does make sense.
I typed in just like different styles of realism, and there's quite a few.
Is there?
Yeah, it looks like it. Impressionism, modern art. Well, I don't know. There's too many lists, but.
And I feel like just from like the industry we're in, I don't feel like a lot of people are very technical, or at least it didn't come from a technical place.
Yeah.
But now it's like there's tons of people with art degrees and shit.
Yeah, and I think it's getting more so getting into that. And one of the podcasts I was listening to today, they were talking about that, because you got two different types of tattooers that are really kind of squaring off. You got ones with fine art degrees, and they're like, I'm trying to think how they framed it, but real technical and like art, like how it's made and what they're doing, and Then you got the tattooers that more of craftsmen, which I think comes with. I think they were talking about it in terms of like the tools and like being like a toolsman, being able to use the tools and uh, do the craft more so that way versus the art. They're like, I don't really even care about the tools. It's more of the art that you get from it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that was a big topic they were talking about, and whether they thought one was better than the other, and it was they took the stance of like just shut the fuck up and tattoo, like the tattoos a space, like you're not right or wrong, like so. Like just fucking worry about you growing your shit, you know. And
Sounds
doing
like
better,
a tattooer thing to say.
You know, I fuck
I
with
agree
it,
with
you
it
know.
though.
I do, because it's like to think I'm right or you're wrong or you're right, I'm wrong. It's like it doesn't even matter, you
Which
know.
is kind of an extension of like getting that degree a little bit. And I'm not trying to dog on anyone that like went out and got an art degree because well, I mean, we already talked about school. It's like paying to have someone tell you exactly like what you want to know, kind of in a way, or at the very least, like being taught things that a person has, directly and like hands on in a lot of ways.
Well, most of them have the resources readily available, so it's like I can take a certain amount of time, I can pay for a certain amount of knowledge, and I can have it all shoved down my throat, and it's up to me to take it and use it or whatever. Versus you having to go out and find all the information, which, you know, if I had to choose between the two, I would say find it yourself so you can build that skill of being resourceful and being
Like
able to figure it out
craftsmanship.
yourself. But you know, it's also time goes into that. How long, you know, what's most important to you, you know. Like for me, it's always just been the tattooing. So it's like do whatever I can to get to just tattooing, and then I'll really focus on my craft. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it's hindered me now that I'm like trying to develop in the composition, art, design aspect of things. Um, but I don't know if I would have changed it and flip flopped. I don't think that I would have rather focus mainly on the art first and then put everything else on the back burner. I'm glad I did it the way I did it. So now, um, it's just like the cherry on top kind of thing. You know, I feel like I'm fed, my family's fed, we're living a good life, people around me are fed, the shop's growing. If I would have been solely in my art and not the business side of things, I think it would have, like, I would just now be getting things rolling good. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I also think there's something to say about like when you're just like kind of focusing on like building your craftsmanship and finding your answers, or better yet, going out and looking for them and finding them that way. Um, I feel like you tend to do a lot better on the back end, or maybe build your confidence a little bit more. I don't know, versus like going to school or maybe like having someone tell you all these rules and like these are the aspects of art. You go make and do it, you know, because through that I feel like when you understand the technical sides of it, and then you can look at someone else's artwork and be like, oh, I know that this is a wonderful piece of artwork. It's renowned because of X, 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 and X, all of these things. How the fuck am I going to do that? How am I going to do that? Like, I see what it is. I see how they did it, but there's nothing that I have that I've garnered that's like, what's my craftsmanship? You know, I know art really well, but how can I do those things? I feel like on the opposite side, working on craftsmanship, you're just fucking around, right? You're pretty much just like messing around until you figure stuff out. And in that, you're still like coming up with your niche, or like kind of honing your, I guess, I don't know.
We're looking up a lot of definitions tonight, which I like. It means I'm learning.
Right. But I feel like if you knew what made art good and had examples in front of you about like execution, like this is well known artwork executed, and this is why it's like known to be really good. I feel like you would just have such a fucking mountain in front of you that like, oh, now I'm trying to compete with this, and I should be able to produce because I know the rules, right? Does that make more sense? Like, I know the rules of this game. I just have to play it to do what he's doing. But man, when I make art, it just doesn't hit the same.
It's just like book knowledge versus like.
I'm gonna call a motherfucker right now, kind of like street knowledge versus book knowledge.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that I know a lot of college kids that feel like they've really accomplished something in life graduating, which it's a big thing. It's a lot of time, and
Right.
especially if you keep your nose to the grind and like really push through, like because there's a lot of distractions in college. I'm sure, it's a place like where people graduate, feel like they've really accomplished something, but really they're just at fucking ground zero. They're at that level where they got to start now,
Right.
but they feel like because they've done this thing that they have all this knowledge, but it hasn't really been applied yet. In a way, maybe. Versus straight out of school, you spent 2 years in college. I spent 2 years in real world. I think by the time I would have graduated college, like I was already doing an average of what you expect out of school. I don't know exactly what that statistic is, but
without the debt.
Yeah.
But at the same time, without all that, terminology and all the technical stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of just going off feeling and just like what the people around me could teach me, because I've never been good at seeking out knowledge, doing research. Like I've never been good at any of that. And not until these past like 2 or 3 years have I really actually tried to become better and work on that side of things. And I can tell when I'm not actively trying to learn and grow. I can tell when I'm not like taking in good information and growing. It definitely affects like my daily drive 100%. But
I feel like I can feel myself like literally being stretched or like even growing in some ways. Like
when you are learning,
when I am like, cause I like something, I don't know about if there's like a moment that people have throughout the day similar to this, but I feel like there's like this moment I have when I first get in the door, when I get home, where it's like the rest of my day comes down on me, where like I finally have received everything that I've gotten that day. And when I feel like it's a day that I've actually learned something, or maybe I'm like in this space of learning better than just like one night of it. I feel like when I get home and my day's finished, I just feel larger than I am. Does that make sense? Like I feel bigger, or I feel like I've actually stretched
just
a little bit.
Accomplishment.
Yeah.
Actual things that can be checked off the checklist.
God, that shit feels so fucking good, man.
It does. And on days where I like wake up and knock shit out in the first couple hours, like the other day when HIP was coming on, I was like, "You better step it up." I fucking have been on my grind this morning.
Yeah.
You could tell I felt good because I like handled several meetings, handled shit with. I've been meeting with a tax attorney because some of shit that I fucking not dabbled in, but maybe have opened the door to some business shit way early on in my career with someone that I should have not done anything with. And so I've been meeting with a tax attorney just to kind of settle some of that stuff, which is all good. It's headed in a good direction. And the state's trying to get some money that I fucking had no part in making or receiving, like
Show fucking hands on my pockets, Sam.
Right. I had nothing to do with that business. I was clearly working at a separate time during that period, which they're trying to say that, but fucking it feels good when you accomplish shit early, But I think the real accomplishments start with going to bed on time. Yeah, like that's got to be like the first accomplishment of the day is just going to bed on time.
Right.
Yeah, like if I'm going to have a successful morning, like I have to be disciplined and going to sleep at a certain time, and usually I'm terrible at that.
Dude, this last month has fucked me on that.
Yeah.
I feel like my whole sleep schedule is just completely 180'd.
Yeah.
Since the holidays started, and I hate it. I hate it so much. And Yeah, I know that it's like you're the one that's got to have that, which is the discipline. You got
Yeah.
to have the discipline to do it. But
Well, if it was up to me, like I would just never sleep. Like I don't really like sleeping. I mean, it feels good, and when I do get a good night's sleep, like it's great. But like, man, I just wish we didn't have to sleep.
right, the moment I wake up, I like want to get up. Like I don't want to. I don't like laying in bed, or like I don't even really like sitting. In one place for too long. Even when I'm like editing stuff, or even this podcast, I feel like I find myself getting like antsy and stuff towards the end of it, just because I hate fucking sitting in one place at the same time for too
Yeah,
long. And sleeps like that too.
yeah.
It's like as soon as I wake up, it's like I'm usually fucking up. Now getting up, or like I feel like I don't
Like waking up and getting your day started is two different things.
right because
There's a lot of buffer time there where
right
life
where
happens.
I will start to right what life toilet time. That's usually what it is for me. But I feel like I'll stay asleep, or maybe I'll like roll around a little bit in the morning times, like starting to wake up or whatever. But it's like the moment my eyes open up a little bit and I like open up, I'll full wake up. But it's like there's some times where I go through that period of like rolling around for a while before I'll finally actually wake up.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the biggest thing for me is, dude, I need to get one of those pillows that they're like big triangles. Like your whole upper body is rested on it, but your arm goes through a hole.
yep.
Because I get a lot of shoulder pain when I'm sleeping, and I just toss and turn a lot 'cause I have a bad habit of wanting to sleep on my stomach. So like I'm like this, but and we got this big foam topper, and I like sink in. So really my arms like really up, dude. So I
Right.
like get a lot of shoulder pains, and that's it's been affecting my sleep a lot. So
Well,
I don't feel like I really got a good night's sleep in a long time.
that sucks, man. And I was just talking to you about that at the shop the other day because when I see you tattoo, and all tattooers are like this, but trying to keep your arms up and like, dude, if I had to sit like that, like if I had to sit like that for fucking 10, 11 hours at a time, like my shit would be hurting too. And then you go home because I sleep that exact same way.
Yeah.
That's my fucking bitch right there.
All right,
You
dude, I've
know?
been sleeping like that since like middle school.
Literally, dude. And it causes issues.
Yeah.
It's like, who was I talking to we were talking about the hands thing?
That was with Nicole at the shop, like trying to sleep with your hands straight out versus
Yeah.
like all curled up and shit.
Because you said it was like early onset, like arthritis or something.
I forget what client was talking about it, but there was like it might have been John. But like when you want to sleep and you notice that your hands will like curl up and they're like this, they're like rolled up under, tucked, like it's a early sign of carpal tunnel. I believe
That's what it is.
because I've definitely seen old people walk around and their hands are like. Or like their fingers are like all fucked up like this to where their shit just wants to curl. So like laying there at night, I just get real paranoid and I'm just like try to sleep with my hands in like the praying hand motion so my shit don't curl up.
Chris is just like, please God, give me good hand rest.
Yeah, take care of these babies.
Right, that's my money makers
They're
right
my
here.
money makers.
I feel like
all soft and delicate.
Right, you got baby hands, son. I feel like there probably is like a decent amount of tattooers like actively looking to do better with their physical health, but I feel like a lot of tattooers, like more tattooers than not, could probably benefit from some really good ergonomic items, like a good ergonomic chair, like fucking like one of those pillows or something, or getting some good sleeping habits. Because one thing that I've locked into this last year, I get real bad flank pains when I sleep, like my kidneys or whatever. But sleeping with a pillow between your legs,
I do that.
oh my God, because I'd always felt so silly with it, or kind of like the keeping your hands flat thing. I haven't tried that yet, but it feels so unnatural that it's like now I can't go to sleep because now all my focus is going into keeping my hands flat.
Yeah, well, it's usually more like I'm like sleeping like this. Yeah.
But I just felt like I was gonna feel so silly, or like I'm gonna put this leg between my legs and I'm not going to be able to sleep because it's just so uncomfortable. Oh my dude,
it definitely helps with the hips for sure.
Crazy difference, man. And I just yeah, I feel like tattooers would probably be feeling, or maybe just like emotionally feeling a lot better if they were
Yeah.
just taking better care of their sleep.
I mean, you mentioned health, dude. That's like the number one thing on my radar. That I really I say, design's number one. This is number one. But if
We're
there was
living
a
different
top
lives.
five, if there was a top five, like that shit's right up there. It's like discipline, how I eat, cutting out. Like I see a lot of shit about sugar, seed oils, like really trying to like get healthier. Because I want to be around a long time for these kiddos. So like cutting out just shit that's not good for my body. Working out. When I was working out 3 days a week, dude, I had zero back pain. I had no. It was bare minimum. It was 90 minutes a week, three 30-minute sessions with the trainer. But I had no back pains, no aches. I had good energy. You know, um, so meal prepping, doing some strength training, cutting out some of the bad shit. Pop, quit fucking drinking pop. And then sleep, man. If I feel like out of everything, discipline wise, art, success or whatever you want to say it, that's the one area that it's like I just haven't really got disciplined in and like really got strict and held myself to a certain way of being. I feel like it does require some habits that is tough, especially with kiddos and a wife that may not be on the same page.
Right.
It is so tough. Meal prepping, making sure dinner with the kids they like also aligns with what I'm trying to eat.
You're almost losing that battle before you even start.
Yeah.
It's just the way how picky kids are with
And
eating.
that's just an excuse. I mean, I know that it could be done.
But the other end of that excuse, just to have, validate that like struggle a little bit, is time.
Yeah.
Because you could say it's an excuse, but the other end of that is just having to put more time into it.
Yeah.
But dude, sometimes that's hard to argue.
Well,
That's really difficult.
It's hard to argue when Call of Duty got like 3 or 4 hours this week. You know what I'm saying? Like I could have meal
That's
prepped
fair.
could have meal prepped the whole week in that time. Because I did re-download some Call of Duty and I've been fucking playing it these past couple weeks.
I think I'm a gamer, so I'm a little bit different on this.
Yeah.
Because that shit feeds my soul, man. Like I feel like I do it because like there was a long time where I like nixed all video games from my life. Like I just didn't play any. I didn't have a PC. No, I had 0 consoles, which fucking anyone that knows me personally, or maybe you've met me now, knows that's like what I'm about. It's like just something about me. It's just something super personal to my heart. I care about it a lot. But I had to cut it out at some point because it was just like I felt like it wasn't serving me the way that it like had at one time. But man, now that I'm like back in it, and I do play video games regularly, but it's definitely balanced. I don't feel like I
Damn, hour and a half already, bub.
Damn, we blew through that shit.
Yeah.
Well,
we still got a little bit left before we jump into Patreon.
Yeah. But yeah, now that I feel like I'm back into it and I do play video games, it's definitely balanced. Because I've got so much, like I've got a guilty conscience. If I can feel in my body when I'm like doing one thing too much, or not putting enough effort into other things. Of course, there's still a lot of learning for me to do in that. Like, cause I don't have that same thing go off with like relationships with people. Like, oh, I haven't fed into this relationship enough recently, or my friendships. I think that's a big one. Cause I feel like, and I would like to get away from this in my life. Whenever I try to accomplish something, it always feels like there's a sacrifice on the other end of it. Like I'm giving up something to propel this one other thing. So, I don't know. As far as me and video games, whether it's video games or like making art for someone, I feel like there's got to be decompression time.
Yeah.
But
that game of sacrificing, dude, that's so real. And it's like you said something to me a while back. It's like, man, you got this, and that going. It's like, I don't know how the fuck you do it. But there's definitely a lot of, if I do this, then it affects this person, take away from family time to do this. There's been a lot of sacrificing over the years. And just this morning I had that feeling. I came down here to the podcast room. I got some lights hung up. I did a little bit of straightening up. And then I went upstairs and I could run to Lowe's and get this shit. Or I could play a couple games of Call of Duty. So I played some Call of Duty, but the whole time I was playing, I was like, fuck, I need to be doing something, this isn't productive. Mm-hmm. So to meet in the middle, I pulled up some podcasts and I listened to 2 hours of podcasts while I was playing, which was cool. And I really need to do more of, because I feel like the biggest thing with podcasting is just topics, coming up with points, shit you're learning, and then you're talking about it, and I feel like you're growing so people can kind of see the growth and go along on that journey with you. And I feel like I've felt that feeling of not doing that a lot these past few months, as far as putting myself into the realm of information, I guess.
Right, actually trying to learn.
Dude, it's are you reading? I was a fucking going hard on books, and it was just down in books and audios and clips and shit, and I feel like I could tell, but then when I go through a period of time where I'm not doing that, I could tell, and now I know that I need to be doing that, so it's just another thing that I have to figure into the schedule. How can I habit stack this? How can I fit this in there in areas, and stay disciplined to keep consuming? Because it's I only got so much shit I can talk about, Right. How we're 10 episodes in, 8 episodes. I think we're recording 9 or 10 right now, I think.
This is number 11.
11, and I feel like I'm digging deep to find shit to talk about, Obviously having guests on and shit, having Hip on, that was dope. Mm-hmm. Shit it opens up doors that you may not think of, or rabbit trail through conversations and different topics. But yeah, I've been fucking really trying to dig deep on topics, and I don't know, I think I'm rabbit trailing now, but
well, I think that's when the pressure was on, and we had talked about that, because earlier on in this podcast we had said that I don't want to come out and just be the fucking guy. I don't have any intention of coming out here and making it seem like I know everything.
Especially when I'm listening to these fucking. There's some dope podcasts out there, couple hitters. I'm just how right. I can't be that guy because this dude's fucking buttoned with a tie.
I mean, and this even goes to what we was just talking about going to school. Well, I feel like we're in that space of building the craftsmanship right now, because it's not like I went to a school to learn how to speak or have good communication skills or conveying ideas, or even beyond all those things, the actual data that I'm trying to fucking share with people, because I ain't got shit, And I think that a lot of what I do have to pass on to people, well, I guess I can't necessarily say that I've already given it on this podcast, because there's a lot of photography things I could talk about and shit, but what's the new stuff? Because right. Not everyone and their mom wants to know how to take photos. Most people don't care, Yeah. Not to say that people don't care about how to take nice photos, but on this podcast in particular, I don't think it's a main subject point. So, and we already know a lot of tattooers want to know, how do you fucking do it? Tell me, give me the meat and potatoes. Just tell me what mm-hmm. to do. And clearly I can't fucking do that. But there's a lot of things that I can contribute to the conversation that can, kind of be a good devil's advocate or make you see something. But it's when you're looking at these other podcasts and you're like, dude, these motherfuckers just got it. They got the information. They know how to deliver it. They're already delivering it to the right people. So it's why the fuck would I even do this at all?
Yeah.
Right. But the thing that I think we have in our niche with this, and the craftsmanship that we're honing in on here, is showing that it's a fucking practice to be learning. Because you're hearing it right now, 10 episodes, 11 episodes deep, and we're struggling to come up with something to say. But it's well, we're gonna fucking find something to talk about. I'm gonna teach myself something today.
Yeah.
And then show it. you know, because like this episode, we didn't have like a big plan for it. We had a couple of like art related topics just kind of like thrown in our notes here and there, and it was like, well, when are we just gonna make a fucking art episode, right? And then there was almost like no discussion of what we were gonna talk about today. But I feel like there was a couple of really good things that I learned, or maybe even things that I needed to hear. That if we hadn't been sitting down and like talking about this shit, I wouldn't have got it otherwise. And to extend that to the audience, people listen to this, I don't know that they would have heard it anywhere else or heard it from our mouths, like the way that we say things, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be silly to think that didn't have any value at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, a few of these podcasts I've been listening to, especially that one I discovered today, that tattoo show, I think was what I said it was. Dude's been tattooing since like the 80s. So it's just like 30 to 40 years of like being submersed in industry culture, you know, and a lot of time to develop that speech and presentation. And, you know, he's probably taught dozens of people. You know, so there's been a lot of time to develop that. And if I get caught up in the comparison game, it's like, fuck me, you know, like I might as well quit. But I think you're totally right. You know, I've been tattooing 10 years, almost 11 years. You've been working with me for about 6, right?
Yeah.
5 to 6 years. And like, so we're still young in the game. And I feel like we have a lot of learning to go. There's been a lot of developing through the process where we've had these conversations like we've talked about and like we want to have, but how can we really bring that here and show people how we're learning or how we're developing? Maybe that's something that could be showcased, and maybe even in a way that where we take a certain aspect of our business. We already kind of broke down the consultation process, but you know, maybe having, you know, the website up and really kind of dissecting the thought process through it, or why we made certain decisions, which is what we kind of was going to talk about, the filter.
Right.
Or, you know, taking a goal that we have and like, how are we going to reverse engineer it and how can we improve different aspects to maintain or grow, and really kind of have that discussion of like things we could actually do real life in our business and the tattoo business to hit checkpoints that we're actually trying to hit, you know, so these people can see, our followers can see that process and then also be along on the journey with us when we hit it.
Right. Because that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like everything you just said is exactly the way that we've done it this last, 6 years or whatever.
Yeah.
It's never been like well, I know how to do this is exactly what has to be done. Like, just execute it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're plugging into a factory and you're just like filling up the boxes with the shit you're supposed to just be putting in it. It's like, this is the goal. Like you said, okay, so let's break that down. Let's reverse it. And that's like, learning that skill set is like, you could learn anything. You could fucking learn anything, but it's in that paired with the feeling of, or maybe the practice or the journey of always learning.
Yeah.
Because then you just don't stop. But again, like you said, if you even slow down for a second or ruin that momentum that all those two other things are building for you, dude, it takes just a little bit of that fucking comparison game to stop you dead in your fucking tracks.
Yeah.
Because you could, like, just exactly what I just said a second ago is like, listening to these other podcasts and these dudes just like fucking know. They've been tattooing for 40 years. They've got the process already figured out. And I'm not even a fucking tattooer,
Yeah.
so why would you listen to me? But fuck that. I'm not trying to slow down. So because the moment you do that, you start to fucking slow down.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing we could showcase is really just the process of learning and growing, and maybe some of the decisions that we make will help. So with that being said, because I feel like having guests on is going to be a different conversation than how we're growing our business or ourselves. I think we're going to try to shoot for 2 recordings a week. Maybe we do guests on Sunday evening, and then Tuesday evening is just like diving into business. That tattoo show, that dude had like 3 or 4 different podcasts where like one was like real to the point. One was like open dialogue and just like random rants and just. But then he also had like one day a week where he would share specific this. So maybe if we had a guest on Tuesday, on Sunday we recorded some of our process or like a key area. So like where does that start? To me, it starts with like, and something I know I need to dial in on is time blocking and actually creating a pretty locked in schedule. So maybe that paired with like 5 to 10 goals that we haven't hit that we need to hit, and then actually like bringing that stuff to the table this next week, and actually sharing with people. Okay, here's what I've made my schedule. Here's what I have time blocked. Like, here's kind of a layout that I'm trying to commit to, and then also here's shit we need to implement, or here's the goals that we could put on our radar. And the goals could be anything, I guess, whether it's personal or business or, which I feel like there's a couple goals that maybe you could set that it's like, well, how would that really come from this business in particular? But like whatever could be on the table, like whatever goals, whether it's financially or health, anything. Like, how do we, like, where could we take this next?
Right. So like, how do we break those things down? How do we actually start accomplishing some of those like smaller bite-sized things and like showing all of it start to finish? Like, haven't even touched this goal at all to now maybe like weeks or maybe in a couple months later is like we check in on this one good thing again and like show like how it fucking works, like what have I done? Like John's like, the John Maxwell's like 5 swings kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it'd be super rad to fucking do that. So
I think that would be dope. I mean, we got a lot of I got several personal goals like I want to try to hit. I know I got even though I feel like with the tattoo business, like I've been cruising, but I feel like there's definitely some things that just to check off the list could be done, and then obviously goals with the podcast. I mean, we're so new in this area. There's definitely things I want to hit, but it's like, how do we get there? And I think that there's tattooers all over that are creating goals, but really don't know how to get them or reverse engineer them in a way that it's trackable and like you can actually measure the success.
Yes.
Because it's like, if I set a goal for the end of the year, 2 months in, how the fuck do I know if I'm even headed in the right direction if I haven't broke that goal down into tangible steps?
Right. Moving on feelings is really good, but you've got to have something to like track it.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to like, I feel like that's been something I've needed that I've gotten from you that I've gotten really good at is like being able to like, I guess on my own personal things, of course, because there's so many different ways to track how you're doing on something. And of course it's contextual on top of that. But I feel like that whole thing that you just explained, taking a goal and breaking it down, that in and of itself is like a whole skill set that you can learn.
Yeah. And by no means have I like
mastered it.
Right. And am I even good at it? I feel like I've never been a tracker. I've never paid attention, but I've been consistent and it's just led to a certain amount of success. But I don't know how much food I've left on the table. I don't know how much I don't know how much money that's been left on the table. I don't know where, if I would have made certain decisions or focused more, tracked more, or really paid attention to those steps, if I'd be in a different place or not. I don't know because I've never really paid enough attention to those day-to-day shit. I just been doing things to move the needle forward, and it's worked. But I don't know. I feel like that just breaking some of that stuff down and working through that with the viewers here would be dope.
Right on.
And it's something that I don't think I've really ran into yet. Everyone's so matter of fact,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I've never been that. I've never been that way, about a lot of things. I want to be better at it, and I want to decide and be sure a lot more, but learning comes in the doing,
I feel like there's almost a wave of like your ego along with that journey, because I feel like I used to be like that, like a definitive yes or no kind of person. But really, that was just my ego getting in my own way. Because if I'm gonna act like that, then there's nothing that anyone else can teach me. Um, it, good friend Honda always says this, like, be humble or be humiliated. And I think that I was humiliated because you go through life just thinking that you got it all figured out. At some point, you're gonna realize, in probably a more than harsh way, that you don't. And that's when you have to dial back on your ego to become a student again. And then when you start to do that, you do that for long enough. Now you're like, oh, well, sure, it's not a definitive yes or no, but I've got one way that does definitively work for me.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, like you said, it's just so matter of a fact these days, and no one's like open to just being open. Yeah. Open to being open.
Yeah.
But I think that that's going to be something that's really cool that we're, actively doing right now on the show, but continue to go forward doing.
Yeah. So with that being said, what can we bring to the table next week or next episode that kind of leads off what we're talking about here? What would be a couple things?
Well, I think we've got homework.
Yeah.
So we could, get I would say maybe just get like 5 goals apiece. And then maybe we can, on our own, like, try to, like, reverse engineer them. Maybe not, like, all 5 of them, but, like, maybe a couple of them after sitting on it.
Just breaking down a few things that could, because we'll obviously open dialogue there and dig into that. And
right.
Okay, so we got 5 goals with a couple bullet points of next steps.
Right.
And then what about maybe for January, if we just have a pretty good layout of, well, do we want to do something with the scheduling? Do we want to lay out like time blocks and things in, and cut from, I guess more so for me, committing to times when things are being done, so we know that. And maybe this could just be a personal thing that I do anyways, which I've already kind of began to do, but I still have a lot of open time that I just haven't committed to. Like, I got my main things on the schedule, and then I got sections where something could be committed to, but I'm kind of like, I'll just leave that open, so maybe I can just decide to do whatever in the heat of the moment and not really be committed. That's kind of what my schedule looks like. There's hard times, and then there's a lot of open time.
I feel like we should do that, because that's, like, for me, like, goal, break down the goal, plan, execute. It's almost like kind of how in my head I envision it. So I feel like those first 3 parts, like, what's the goal? Let's break it down. Plan. I feel like those 3 things we could, and plan obviously be like, well, let's make the time for it. Like, we already know after breaking it down what we need to do starting out. Now let's make time to do that. And then we could just, like, probably execute and, like, talk about on the following episode, like, what the executions looked like.
So with the schedule, we should have the, like, kind of like how I've already have it laid out, like the hard chunks of time where you're already committed, and then the open time, or time that you could work with, label is open, and then we could, once we identify goals, then take those steps and kind of fill in time and kind of do that.
Right, because I already have, like, both of us already have schedules.
Yeah.
Kind of built out, but
really hardlining boundaries, and, like, the more you live with your person and got your space, like, I'm sure you got times in there where it's like no go. Same with me,
Right.
Have that scheduled off, and then have the, like, school mornings and certain times open that I could now apply things to. So is that what you were saying?
Yeah, and that'll be kind of like part of the homework, is, like, getting the, like, because my shit isn't, like, perfect right now, because, like, obviously when you know your schedule, you're like, even if it's loose,
yeah, like, you still just know when shit happens out of habit.
But I do think there's something about, like, fucking putting on the calendar like putting it hard on the calendar. So when that shit goes off, I like to rely on it. But it's usually when I'm in that space, like we're about to head into this new season, that I'm like way more strict on when my alarms are going off.
Yeah.
Like, dude, well, my fucking phone told me it's time to do this, so I'm doing it. Ensure that doesn't always look the prettiest when you're with people or you've got people in your life.
It could give you an opportunity to discuss that schedule time. Like, hey, look, I'm working on this now. Like, is there any times on your schedule that we need to co-align schedules? Which that's not always an easy conversation to have. Me and Katie have tried, and I'm not really a planner, but she's for sure not a planner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like fucking two dull ass swords just going at it.
Right. That's super funny.
So maybe that conversation would be easier to have with others, but could give a chance to make sure that time lines up. So when something comes up that's hard on the schedule, it's not like conflicting with others, or like times where it's like, well, actually, I'm not doing anything now. This is my scheduled downtime. Like, and now you're fucking trying to work kind of thing.
Right.
Something to consider, but okay, cool. That's the homework then. 5 goals, kind of broken down.
And then making sure that schedule is like
or maybe
prepared.
Maybe let's make it 6. 2 personal, 2 fucking tattoo, 2 podcasts or something.
Sounds good.
Whatever.
And then we'll I'm sure because going through 12 goals all in an episode seems like that'd be pretty fucking impossible. Because I feel like we go down on a goal and we really will break it down to figure out what we need to do. So maybe if we had those full 6, and then when we come back together, like maybe sometime during the week, we're just share what the goal is, and then. Because, to be honest with you, if I was to tell you one of my goals or like a set of goals and you're like, well, number 2 and number 5, those sound like fucking dope goals. You should do those. That's going to make me feel more amped to fucking focus on those 2 things.
Gotcha.
Right? Because like who doesn't like hearing that your dude fucking, or who doesn't like hearing your best friend say that your goals are dope?
Yeah.
Which also, let's fucking incentivize that. Let's like push that a little bit more, telling your friends that their goals are dope.
Yeah.
That's a cheat code. That's your homework, is go tell someone that their fucking goals are dope, or go ask someone what their goals are.
Yeah, just ask them what they are. That's something that really no one has ever really asked me until got into 09. It's like, what fucking goals are on your radar? We used to have to share them in shop meetings. Like, what's your weekly goal, monthly goal, work schedule goals? Like, what are you trying to live into? That was something we always shared during shop meetings. So definitely be open about it, and if I know your goals, mine, then we can support each other in that process.
Right.
So cool, man.
Dope.
Well, we're gonna roll into the Patreon here, so hopefully you guys stick around and you catch us on there. But Tim, do you want to do socials? And I feel like we're getting to a point where like the intros lax. They're there. I'm sure if you just look down, they're probably right there.
I messed up I was going to try to just keep a straight face with you for like a while and just like not even say it and just like have the episode. And I fucked it up. You guys know where the fucking socials are. Yeah, they're in the fucking description below. But More Than Tattoos, just Google it. We're doing pretty good on SEO, so it's kind of hard not to find us. But fucking hit that Patreon. And also check out the website, because we did get one. I would love to hear specifically, like, find something about the website that you don't like and tell me that so I can fix on it. Or maybe like we can, that'd be part of the goals or something like that. You give me one of the fucking goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know. I think Instagram's a good platform for open dialogue. We're going to try to post more clips, try to really kind of hone in on the IG over top of Facebook, do some YouTube shorts, and, leave some comments. Let's open this bitch up for some dialogue. Let's have some conversations. Maybe we could do, I think if we do have weekly episodes, if we're shooting for an hour and a half, 2 hours, like half-hour segments of, Q&A or just like different, like that one from today, they had like a whole news section of different updates throughout the industry and shit that was happening with laws overseas, tattoo machines that were dropping. I don't necessarily love that particularly, but definitely fuck with the Q&A for sure. You know, I know a lot of you guys watching have good questions, so let's hear them.
Right. Can't be sitting in silence because you don't fucking hear nothing good if you do.
Yeah.
But man, that's pretty much all I got.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, without further ado, appreciate you guys for tuning in for another episode of More Than Tattoos. We're gonna roll into this Patreon, so make sure you hop over there and check it out. Peace.